You know the image, right? A lone philosopher, maybe in a dimly lit study, on this epic quest for pure, unblemished truth. They see themselves as a totally detached instrument of reason. But what if the truth they find is less about the universe and a whole lot more about them? Well, today we're opening up the case file on truth itself. So let's look at our first philosopher. He's super thirsty after a rough night's sleep, and he sees a simple glass of water. But he's not just thinking about hydration. No, for him, this water is a symbol for his entire worldview. Clarity, coolness, a perfect, gentle flow. And just like that, he starts building this grand philosophical system where fluidity and transparency become the highest virtues. At the same time, we've got another philosopher. This one's a builder of empires, a person of command. They look up at a mountain, they don't just see a pile of rocks and dirt. They see unyielding strength, they see hierarchy, they see the eternal right of the strong to rule. So of course their philosophy is all about solid foundations and unbreachable power. Now here's the kicker. Both of these thinkers swear their vision is objective, that they're just describing the world as it is. But are they really? Or are we just listening to the personal confession of a thirsty man and the echoing roar of a conqueror? That's the big question we're digging into today. All right, let's really get into it. Our investigation is going to start by looking at the very foundations of these truth claims, to see where those first little cracks begin to appear. So, clue number one in our mystery is this idea of dogma. You know, dogma is what happens when beliefs get so hard they turn into concrete. They become these fixed principles that you're supposed to accept as absolute true, no questions asked. It's basically a way of thinking that just slams the door shut on any real curiosity. And this picture? It shows the problem perfectly. When a belief becomes dogma, people defend it like their life depends on it. Any challenge is met with this massive wall of resistance. But that fierce defense? Well, it's a dead giveaway. It's a sign of weakness, not strength. It's telling you that the foundations of that belief probably aren't as solid as they look. And that's the crucial point, right? Where does this stuff even come from? Well, it's almost never from pure crystal clear logic. Nope. Its origins are way more human and way more flawed. We're talking about things like old superstitions, traditions we inherit from our culture without ever really thinking about them, and this is a big one, our own deeply personal biases and prejudices. So let's move on to our next piece of evidence, which kind of puts the philosopher themselves right in the hot seat. We've got to look past all the big, fancy theories and actually examine the person who came up with them. The case against totally objective truth really builds when you see this two-step process. First, a thinker, maybe without even realizing it, starts with their own personal biases, their own desires. Then comes step two. They use all their brainpower to dress up those very personal feelings in this fantastic costume of smart, intellectual language, making it look like a universal truth for everybody. And what's so fascinating is what this really means. It means that a grand theory about the entire universe might actually be, well, an unintentional autobiography. It's not just a product of logic, it's a confession of that philosopher's own experiences, their deepest feelings, or, like we saw with our first guy, something as simple as their own physical thirst. And all of this brings us right to the heart of the mystery. If all these big truths are really just personal confessions in disguise, what's the one big idea that explains it all? What's that final piece of the puzzle we've been looking for? And here it is, the big reveal. The answer is perspective. The argument goes that perspective isn't some flaw that gets in the way of seeing truth. It is the fundamental condition of knowing anything at all. We never, ever see reality directly. Everything we know is filtered. There's just no such thing as a view from nowhere. So what are these lenses we're all looking through? Well, they're not made of neutral, clear glass. They're actively shaped by our biases, our personal stories, and this idea called the will to power. Now, that sounds pretty intense, but really, it just means we all have this deep, instinctual drive to make sense of the world in a way that helps us and gives us a sense of control. Think about it. A politician might see a crisis as a chance to grab more influence, while an artist sees that exact same crisis as inspiration. Same event, totally different lenses. Okay, so if perspective really is everything, what does that mean for our biggest, most important ideas? This way of thinking doesn't just apply to old philosophy books. It has huge implications for politics, for art, and especially for something like morality. Let's take a look. You can really see the massive difference here. The old dogmatic view says morality is some universal code that we discover, like it's written in stone, the same for everyone, forever. But the perspectival view says no, morality is a story that we write. It's a human creation, a tool we build for ourselves. And because it's rooted in our needs, it changes across cultures and evolves over time. We're the authors here, not just the readers of some ancient text. Now, realizing all this doesn't mean we have to just throw up our hands and say nothing is true or that life is meaningless. Not at all. Actually, it's an invitation to start a much more honest and frankly more courageous quest for what's real. So, the huge takeaway here is that we need to ask better questions. We have to move past the simple, is it true, and start asking things that are way more revealing. When someone makes a big truth claim, we can ask, okay, but whose truth is this? What human need or impulse is it serving? And what kind of power is this idea trying to put into the world? Ultimately, this isn't about destroying truth. It's about trading in the false comfort of rigid certainty for something way more valuable, a richer, more honest, and more authentic way of understanding the world. By seeing the human hands that shape all of our ideas, we take that crucial first step toward actually, truly thinking for ourselves.